What's happening, everyone? Welcome to another edition of In the Studio. Today I'm going to be helping you answer the question, do you need a music producer? Let's go.
Spicy
All right, let's get into it. If you are a musician, vocalist, artist, songwriter, anyone who is looking to record a record or an album, which is a collection of records, then the odds are you do need a music producer. Even without knowing your project, I would say 95% of the time, I would recommend that you do get a music producer. And before we discuss the reason why, I should probably list to you what a music producer actually does. Music producers are the backbone of the music industry, and here's why. Number one, they're responsible for shaping ideas both musically and lyrically on your particular song or record or album. So for example, if you're a songwriter or an artist and you are going to be collaborating with a music producer, their first job would be to understand what you're trying to convey with the song. They want to know the meaning of the song. They want to know the type of vibe you were looking for. They want to know if you're open to interpretation or if you have specific guidelines that you're looking for or specific sounds you're looking for. Their job is to help you craft this song to the best of their ability. So it's super important that the artist or songwriter and the producer have a great working relationship. One of the most important things a music producer does is organize your record or album. They're responsible for making sure that they have session time, like if they have a recording studio, booking the time. They're responsible for making sure that if you wanted live musicians, that they book those live musicians and that they are able to record those live musicians. They're responsible for the overall product in the end. That is really important. In the end, and this comes from some of the highest up people in the music industry. In the end, it's the music producer's responsibility if the song is a success or a failure. Now that may seem like it's a little open for interpretation, because what if the artist likes it, but the general public doesn't? Well, it depends. If you're just doing a song for a songwriter or artist, you're just trying to make the artist happy and try to accommodate and try to shape their ideas as best you can. If you're working for a record label or trying to have some sort of commercial success, you have to have both of those things. You have to have the artist loving it, and you have to have the connection with the audience. And it always comes down to the final word of the producer. As we mentioned before, the producer is responsible for creating the vibe of the track, creating the music bed. Many times, songwriters or top liners or artists will bring in a song, maybe they play it on an acoustic guitar or piano, and they'll just have them singing on a voice memo. And they'll show me that, and they'll say, this is the song, and this is the sound I'm looking for, and this is the vibe I'm looking for. Can you help with that? Here's an example of a song I worked on with a killer songwriter in town named Haley Bowers. She's a monster writer, vocalist, just all around great musician. This is just her singing the vocals as we were working. No track yet, just her and I. And then after we hear this version, I'm going to show you the produced version.
Let's listen to that favorite song, one you're always putting on,
just to have something stuck in our heads,
so we can stop the thinking and not waste this Friday evening laying side by side trying to forget. Oh,
I'll get over it, you'll get over it.
We'll get over it in the morning. I'll get over it.
Oh,
We'll
get over it.
We'll get over it in the morning.
Now that you heard the original acoustic idea from Haley, let me show you what we ended up with.
Let's listen to that favorite song, the one you're always putting on, just to have something stuck in our heads, so we can stop the thinking, not waste this Friday evening laying side by side trying to forget. Oh, I'll get over it, you'll get over it, we'll get over it in the morning. I'll get over it, you'll get over it, we'll get over it in the morning.
You can see in this particular version, it's much bigger sounding. We still try to keep the acoustic-y kind of sound, just you can hear those strummed guitars, almost like you'd hear like in a country or folk song. And then I just added a few pop elements to it to kind of make it a little bit bigger, and we added the gang vocal at the chorus. But you can see the difference from just acoustic to a bigger, blown-out version. Today's modern producer needs to be able to record live instruments and vocals. Back in the day, that used to not be the case, whereas you would just hire an engineer, the producer would sit behind the engineer, and they'd record vocals in the studio. Today, the producer is asked to be able to record live instruments and record vocals. So it's super important that your producer is competent in recording. Today's modern producer needs to really be able to work on vocals. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, by working on vocals, I'm really talking about getting a great vocal chain, meaning how the effects are lined up on the track. It also means being able to tune the vocal, being able to really get a good sound. And by tuning, I don't necessarily mean auto-tune per se. A lot of people have this misconception of auto-tune that everything is T-Pain. It's really not like that at all. Some things are tuned, like this one in particular was tuned very gently. Haley's voice is very good, and the style of music that we were doing just now did not require heavy tuning. So it's just mildly tuned. Whereas sometimes if I'm doing a straight top 40 track, I'm gonna make sure that the auto-tune is on pretty hard so that you can hear some of those computerized effects. So it's really important that your producer be able to work on vocals really quickly and efficiently. Finally, the producer is responsible for giving honest feedback and quality control. What do I mean by that? It's very hard for most people to get perspective on their music. I totally understand some artists do art for art's sake and they don't care what anyone thinks, and that is totally legitimate. But when we're talking about trying to get grow an audience or get some music that really resonates a little bit more with the general public, you're going to need someone to give you honest feedback. Honest feedback can be like, that song's not very catchy, or the hook needs to be better, or the verses don't make sense, or can you explain this to me, or what were you thinking here? Asking a lot of questions, making sure that it resonates and sounds like a song that people would listen to either on the radio or something you think is unique that can push through. Really super important. And we also talked about quality control. Like we said before, it is important that you understand that the buck stops with the producer. So you are responsible for the quality control of the record. How do you know if you connected with the right music producer? Well, they should have all those skills that I mentioned before, plus they should be able to use their computer audio software at a very high level. The faster they can use it and the more effective they can use it, the better your session's gonna be. Meaning, if you're in a session and you're writing, right, if they are not very competent in using your computer, you could be sitting there for 8, 9, 10 hours and really just getting a chorus done. Whereas sometimes with a very effective producer and a fast producer, you could sit there and in a half an hour to an hour have something that sounds pretty good verse, pre, and chorus already. I also highly recommend that you find a producer that is very cognizant of current sounds and sonics. Meaning, again, if you're going for a radio sound or something that's a little bit more for the general public to consume and not just a kind of an art record, you're going to need someone that really has dialed in what the sound is on the radio. Not that they want to emulate or copy that, just that they should understand what is kind of vibing on the radio, what makes a radio sound, right? Live drums as opposed to sample drums, synths as opposed to guitar, or vice versa. As we've talked about in other videos, almost any style song can be a hit song, but there are some sonic qualities that do make it sound radio. So it's important that your producer be really current and really up to date with what the current sonics are on the radio. If your producer is not sure if they can record live vocals or live instruments, I would say that's a red flag going up. They need to be able to do that, especially today. Here's one that I may get some comments about: a basic knowledge of harmony. Let me start by saying there are tons of producers who are not really musicians in the traditional sense. What I mean by that is they are great programmers. They can take the stuff that's on the computer, samples, bring them into the computer software, manipulate them, and make an unbelievable record. But they are not necessarily musicians per se. Meaning they don't really have a basic knowledge of harmony, or really some of them don't even have the ability to play a live instrument. It is super helpful if your producer has a basic knowledge of harmony. They don't need to have jazz extensive harmony, but it's really helpful if they understand pop harmony just in general. This is a must for me. They need to be able to have an understanding of song form. What does that mean? They have to understand the typical song forms and how to manipulate those, meaning intro, verse, pre, chorus, post. The more feedback and collaboration you and your producer can do, the better your project is going to be. I promise you. It always works that way. A lot of times I'll be in sessions with great songwriters and they don't really want to hear any lyric ideas, and I may not be into the song, but I can tell they don't really want to hear my lyric ideas. That's fine. I'll keep making the song, but odds are I'm not really going to be into it. You need to have buy-in from both the artist, the songwriter, and the producer. I know you may think like, a lot of us just go in and we write songs and then we just dish them out to the rest of the world and hope they hit. But you have to really feel passionately about a song to really want to push the song. So it's really important that all parties included in the song really love the song. All right, everyone, I hope I answered the question as to whether you need a music producer. As I stated in the beginning, if you're working on a record, song, or an album, 95% of the time you're going to need a music producer. That's all the time we have for today. If you have any comments, as always, hit me down below, and I will get back to you ASAP. Peace.
Spicy cheese.